What's going on YouTube, and welcome back here to another day here in the MC Park server, and we are back in EPCOT today. We are going to be exploring my favorite pavilion in Future World, and today we're going to be looking at the Living with the Land, or the Land Pavilion as many call it. So of course we have to start in the beginning of EPCOT here. And yeah, looking back at the history of this pavilion is pretty interesting. So as we make our way over here, this is an original pavilion from the opening of the park. And as Disney was really excited to open up this park and open all the pavilions, the one they were the most excited for actually ended up being Living with the Land. And the reason for that, well, there were a couple of reasons, but one of the main reasons they were so excited to open Living with the Land was the fact that it actually was supposed to be something different. It was actually supposed to be more of an ecology theme. And eventually it got to the point where sponsorships were involved, and of course Disney being Disney, and especially during this era, their sponsorship with Kraft Foods really changed the direction of the Land Pavilion. Now the Land opened on opening day of EPCOT, October 1st of 1982, and the attractions inside of this are very different today here in 2024 than they were back when it opened. Now before we get too far into here, this is one of my favorite parts of this area, is the loop that is right in the front here. And I love this sign. The sign in person looks incredible, and it's just a really cool design that, I don't know, it's very eye-catching, and it tells you really about what you're about to step into. Now obviously the other thing I really love is the architecture, how you've got the Living with the Land structure, right? You have this big dome sort of thing in the building in the middle. And it was actually supposed to be much different. It was actually supposed to be a giant crystal, and you were able to see, sort of like the Imagination Pavilion, it was going to be a transparent glass that you could see sort of the rainforest from. Now actually here in the real life version, they have a giant mural of like living with the land and the different layers of the Earth's crust and things like that. And obviously they weren't able to do that in Minecraft, but that is really one of, again, there's so many little charming details with this pavilion that you just don't see anymore today in Disney. And hopefully it stays there for many, many more years. So once you walk in, you can tell the color scheme is very much of an earthy, like not super vibrant, just very basic natural color scheme. And it's been like that since opening day. The first area that was supposed to be a part of the Ecology Pavilion, there was going to be a hot air balloon ride, which is kind of ironic today because now we have the hot air balloons in the middle of the pavilion. You also had the show Kitchen Cabaret, which was a nod kind of to Kraft, right? Kraft had a big say in the Kitchen Cabaret as their baby attraction. And this used to be called, I forgot what it was called, but this was another theater show, which eventually became the Circle of Life, an environmental fable. It had Simba, Timon, and Pumbaa kind of going over the, how we have to protect the earth, and it was a little bit more of a comical look than the original, which was kind of seen as boring. This area is the spinning restaurant that now has its character dining, and it used to be called the Land Grill, and eventually that changed over time, which it's now the Garden Grill. And an interesting fact about the Garden Grill, it actually spins faster at night than it does during the day for breakfast. It's kind of an interesting fact because they know that more people are being put throughout the experience, so that way everybody gets to see the entire kind of show, all the different show scenes. It spins fast enough where everybody can do it in a shorter period of time. so it goes faster at night. So kind of cool. Moving along, of course, we have the main attractions down here. So the first thing we need to look at is right down here, the attraction that really is the basis of the Living with the Land. This attraction encapsulates everything that this area is supposed to be. And this actually used to be called Listen to the Land. Listen to the Land opened in 1982. And then in December of 1993, so 11 years after opening, it officially became Living with the Land. And obviously now it's sponsored by Chiquita, which I believe that's the the company that makes the Chiquita bananas. But like I said, this attraction has had different iterations over time as well. It's an attraction that is much different than other attractions, right? This is the definition of an edutainment type dark ride. It's part dark ride, part educational. And I think of all the pavilions at EPCOT, this one has stood the test of time because it's still relevant today. And I think it's one of those things that, yeah, it could be seen as kind of corny and a little bit cheesy and boring, but it really encapsulates something that we still have today, which is, humans' interaction with nature and humans' interaction with food and things like that. And I think that's something that's kind of lost today, because everybody wants to go on the attraction that's going to be fun and, goes on crazy loops like roller coasters or going on soaring, and this ride gets forgotten, which is a shame, because this is a really great attraction. And this scene kind of talks about how thunderstorms to humans is seen as a disaster and a scary thing, but it's actually critical to plant life and critical to keeping our world moving, and is a huge sign of life and growth. And it is just very interesting how they kind of explain all of that, right? Like how humans think of thunderstorms and lightning and stuff as destruction. And then eventually you start to go into the different terrariums. The first one, I believe, is a sort of like a farmhouse. And during this scene, I think you actually have a dog. Oh no, this is the rainforest scene. So this is the rainforest. And it's really nice. You have the waterfall here. You're able to see the first part of the Garden Grill restaurant right there. Obviously you have some animals. I think these are alligators. I'm pretty sure they are. So you got the rainforest area. And then I think this, if I'm not mistaken, it should be the desert scene. I don't fully remember. We're going to find out in a second though. But yeah, you board a very, literally, like almost the exact same ride vehicle here. And so this is the desert scene. You've got there's no animals in there. It's just a very, it's a very surreal looking scene that's just empty, but it's also full of life. And they kind of explain how, even though to us it looks empty, there's a lot of things going on there. Then over here, this is where I believe the water buffalo are, right? Or not the water buffalo, but the bison, the American bison, and the ranch is over here. This is where the dog starts barking, right? I think did they do that in here? Maybe? Yeah, so you can see the dog kind of barking right there. So just some kind of interesting things, right? You got the chickens making noise and stuff like that. But this is really, like I said, you're not going to see them building an attraction like this today. This is only something that could have been built during the 80s. Because Disney eventually went in a very different direction. They started going away from the educational, edutainment, into more thrill, speedy, fast, fun rides. And I think there is still space in EPCOT for these types of attractions. It's just, like I said, we're just not going to see Disney doing that. Now, this also serves as a dual function. It also has a second purpose. Not only is it an attraction, and that's actually a screen right there, so that's why the scenes are going by. but it kind of is showing you how humans are like farming and using the land to produce food and things like that. Yeah, so the production and research center. So we're starting to move out of the dark ride portion into the actual like terrariums and the greenhouse. Now, like I said, this is one of the few remnants of attractions that still exists in Epcot that has this type of theme. Most attractions in Epcot don't do this anymore. It's much more about, a different way of vacationing. People aren't going to Disney to learn about, how food is made and how our connection with food. It's just a different way of looking at things now. And I think if anything, we try to get away from education as in any way we can, right? So the way society has kind of changed its focus on attractions like this is it's kind of interesting over really the last 30 to 40 years. And over here, what's really cool in this area during the holiday season, actually, during Christmas and things like that. On my most recent trip last year, we went on the, what is it called? Like, it's Living with the Land, but it's the Christmas overlay. And it was an incredible attraction. I will tell you, I've been on some incredible theme park overlays for the holidays. That is probably the best one. It was so good. It was so good because it was just something that is, like I said, it's just something that you don't expect to see. And the lines were really long. People really love and embrace that attraction. And hopefully that means that this attraction is going to stay here for many more years. Because if there's that much fanfare, that much attention toward it, Disney's able to still market it and sell it. They're not going to touch it if they don't have to, right? So I'm really interested to see the future of this attraction, because a lot of people have said before Guardians of the Galaxy took over Ellen, there was rumors that they could put a Guardians of the Galaxy roller coaster here. Just blow up the greenhouse and things like that. And this is like a fish hatchery, actually. It's kind of cool. But yeah, the direction from Disney is just, it's very interesting to see their origins in Epcot. And like I said, you go on this attraction. It's a fairly long attraction, as you can see. It's a fairly long attraction, and there's not a ton to really, it's not really entertaining. But you have to be going into it knowing that this is, I think that's the thing. Some people will go on to this oh, that's a dark, let's go on the boat ride, right? Oh, there's no theme to it. Oh, who's the character, right? People will avoid this attraction because they don't understand what it really is. And that's just, like I said, that's kind of indicative of just how society is today in 2024, and that's okay. But I think there's definitely enough people that still love and embrace this attraction for what it is. Now, I think during the Flower and Garden Festival, they also do some special things in the greenhouses to kind of decorate. Every once in a while, you'll see Mickey Mouse planters that are like I said, in the shape of Mickey Mouse. There's so many little things you can do at this attraction that are really cool. You also have the Behind the Scenes tour, which was a very, very, I've heard very good things about the Behind the Scenes tour. So if that's something you would ever like to visit, probably worth doing, because a lot of people talk very highly of it. It's very hard to get into. I haven't been able to get into it yet. But I would love to, when I go back, I would love to see the Behind the Scenes tour. And you kind of go through the greenhouse and you kind of get a tour through this whole area, which I think is pretty cool. And like I said, this does have a dual function. The other function is this serves as the provider of food for the Garden Grill, which is really cool. So that restaurant, the Garden Grill, gets all their food and vegetation from Living with the Land. Now, we'll go a little bit into the history of Soarin' while we're still on here, but Soarin' was not an original attraction, as you might guess. The original attraction that was in that area was actually called Kitchen Cabaret. And like I said, it was the baby for Kraft and the sponsorship with Disney. And it basically talked about, you know, how you have to eat the four main food groups and things like that. And which, funny enough, we don't even have the four main food groups anymore. We have the pyramid or whatever. And so things have changed a lot. So eventually that attraction did close, the Kitchen Cabaret, and turned into Food Rocks and became more of a updated but still irrelevant in 2024 attraction called Food Rocks. And I never got to see either of those attractions. I just I wasn't old enough. My family wasn't enough into it to even, I don't think we even went to the Land Pavilion the first two times I went to EPCOT when I was a little kid. And I think that's a shame, because that's, I think, part of the fact that Soarin' wasn't there. Soarin' was not an attraction, and people just didn't go to the land. And then eventually, in the early, I would say the mid 2000s, the Disney company shut down Food Rocks, and they built an entire new show building behind, which would eventually become Soarin' Around the World, which we have today. And Soarin' Around the World is definitely the attraction that people come to the Land Pavilion for. And if they're able to stumble across attractions like Living with the Land and, you know, the Circle Vision, or whatever it's called now, the new Circle show in in the Land Pavilion, that's a benefit, right? Because you're getting people into that pavilion. I think it's just such an underrated pavilion. And like I said, I think it's indicative of the first two times I went to Disney. We didn't even go to the Land Pavilion. So it's just a different way of looking at the parks today. And it's really interesting just seeing how different Disney is today than they were. And like I said, we will never see an attraction like Living with the Land again. We just aren't. It's just not in the cards for Disney. It's not something that they're prioritizing. It's not something they can really sell to the general public. But if you do, and Disney definitely knows this, the hardcore fans definitely understand what this attraction is. It is definitely an attraction that is for the new Disney people. They're like, what is this? Why is this here? But if you understand it and you're able to appreciate what it is an attraction that probably could become your favorite someday. So like I said, we have Soarin' over here, and this, like I said, used to be oh no, we can't even go in the queue. They should really have the queue open at least. That's a shame. But yeah, and this is the exit to Soarin' right here. And this is kind of the I didn't realize this, but on my most recent trip I realized this area is for like the family members that are either too young or too afraid of soaring. So all the family members kind of gather here for when the rest of their party finishes up the ride. But that's a really good ride. Another interesting thing is the Four Seasons restaurant. And this restaurant has all different types of quick service food. You've got like Asian cuisine, you've got rotisserie chicken, things like that. And kind of going into the theming of the air balloons here. The four balloons originally meant the four food groups, and obviously over time that no longer mattered and no longer like was relevant. And Michael Eisner decided that they were going to, and he had a big say on this, they changed all four of the hot air balloons from the four food groups to the Four Seasons. And that, of course, ties in perfectly to the new Four Seasons restaurant. That was kind of a fun fact I learned the other day before making this video. And basically every balloon has a different theme. So one's winter, spring, summer, and fall. And I think that was kind of a cool attraction. Little details that you might not know. On this side of the pavilion, it's kind of quiet. You've got like I think you have the elevators over here and stairs, but there's really nothing to do on this side. Like I said, the Circle Vision, or I keep calling it Circle Vision. It's not a Circle Vision attraction. It's the Circle of Life environmental fable. I really enjoyed that version, but of course Disney decided to update that to more of like a Disney Nature IP. The Garden Grill is right here, and then of course your two main attractions and your quick service food are down there. So that's it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I enjoyed making it. Hopefully you enjoyed watching it. And like I said, stay tuned because I am going to be posting a lot of videos here on the channel, specifically about Disney and things like that. So if you're interested, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I hope to see you again next time. Peace out, guys.